Good morning. It's the 18th of February, Wednesday, 2026. Thank you for tuning in. This is Kusile Breakfast Show. Sisama ukuthi niphilile. Masatla mahle sama kakhulu ukuthi nikhethe kuvuka nathi lo mhla ekseni. Libito lami ngilungelele makakula with my co-host Shomna Gmili. Good morning, Nguni.
Doing very well, Lulu. How are you?
I'm good. I'm great.
Doing fantastic. Just excited for what lies ahead for the year 2026, especially session number 3 of the 12th Parliament. We know that the Cabinet retreat is underway, and some pronouncements there have been made. We hope that whatever it is that they are consolidating and just, reflecting on, they're able to come up with something. Otherwise, we're very excited for this year as well as this financial year.
Yeah, kunjalo Mnguni. Iminyaka sokuqalile njengoba usho njengoba nje opening of parliament is happening on Friday. Lokulandzela lokho is the Bukani ceremony. Lokulandzela lokho is the Good Friday holidays. Emva kwalokho iminyaka sophelile, and before you know it, we're halfway through the year.
Absolutely. And it's always exciting because we've always said livela kangwane leader kakhulu ngeculture yayo, masiko ethu are unique, and there's always criticism around things that any country says, but I think what has been beautiful is this being testament to all those pronouncements. There were these Icon Africa Awards. I believe they were in Kenya. I stand to be corrected, but so we saw Babugisi Foundation.
Yes.
We saw Umbanangosi Lindani there. It was beautiful. Gubona emasiko akangwane aba recognized. The Africa that we want. And it was beautiful indeed just to see Maswati bawa embrace.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you for tuning in and good morning once again. This morning, as we bring you the latest developments, sitaba sixoxisana nebaga anti-venom Eswatini. Takumele ukuthi solo sigiyo isama season ngelana lapho khona tinyoka sitibona titineng kakhulu. Bayeke basikhiphela ama reports ukuthi solo bakhona abantu lababikako ukuthi balonywa tinyoka. Tinyoka tingoti kakhulu, especially uma ngabe vele utawulonywa ngulena leyingoti le poisonous kapheke nayo anti-venom lapha even sifuna ukukhulumisana nabo nje ukuva ukuthi ingabe the past December holidays njengoba solo sikisa ama season kule summer season nje ama reports abantu laba attackwe tinyoka abenganani. And also they're going to be hosting a symposium this year on the 28th of February lapho kufundziswa sive ngetinyoka ukuthi badivikela kanjani etinyokeni nekuthi uma seyikulumile le nyoka, what steps do you take ukuthi uqhubeke uphile. They'll be joining us at 7:30 this morning.
Otherwise, it's 3 minutes after 6. We'll look at the leading headlines.
Starting off with the Eswatini Observer, leading stories this Wednesday. 4 are in court for alleged murder. Tsepo Bright Khaledi's alleged killers, Duduzi Mdeni, Ifana Shongwe, and Lomaswati Dlamini during their first court appearances yesterday before Sitegi Principal Magistrate. In other news, foot and mouth mass vaccination goes slow. Veterinary assistants throw government plan for mass rollout in turmoil as they plan to boycott over decades old 3% hardship allowance that is still outstanding and non-reimbursement of fuel. In other stories, SANU pleads for government intervention in ongoing strike, and 14 UNESCO students suspended for boycotting.
Sibuka temidlalo solo sikuyo Eswatini Observer indzaba le hamba embili ngiyo indzaba yeNsingizini Hotspurs lekuthiwa khona sihlangu training. Nsingizini Stars have been no show. The quartet skips Sihlangu sessions amid Ingonyama Cup commitments before Eritrea clash. Ingonyama Cup double headers galore, and 4 referees have been suspended for 5 games. Sithebe Samhlekazi is confident of returning with good results.
That's why Eswatini Daily News, Letamba Mbili, all set for parley opening. Senate President Lindiwe Dlamini, House of Assembly Speaker with Matogoza Dlamini, who represents His Majesty King Mswati III during the Parliament rehearsals for speech from the throne on Friday. In other news, AU warns against whitewashing coups, pushes firm stand on constitutional order. In other stories, 1 billion Malangeni water services project is at 85% complete. Over 150 people with disabilities are to join Bugano ceremony, and 4 nabbed after man found murdered.
Eswatini Daily News sports headlines is a new man who has sealed Zim move in what has been the biggest transfer news. Birds agreed to a 1-year deal with Agama FC on Captain Piliso on his Zimbabwe move. In other stories, go and reach the semi-finals. Kusho EFA Implora Sithebe Samhlekazi. And then Manchester United want Liverpool's Mac Allister.
All right, Ngito Letamba Imbile, it's 6 minutes after 6. We go for an ad break and come back with our first bulletin. Tinzaba, Wanzao.
To all the viewers of Eswatini TV in the kingdom and beyond. Eswatini TV is regulated by the Eswatini Communications Commission through the Broadcasting Code and Broadcasting Guidelines. Under these instruments, the station commits to broadcasting information and news that have been fact-checked, programs and content in respectful language with no elements of hate speech, violence or sexual activity. If you hear any unsuitable content on this channel, you have a right to voice your complaints with the station management. Should you not be satisfied with the response or action taken, you can escalate your matter to the Communications Commission at PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Call 2406 7000 or send an email to info@esccom.org.za. For more information, visit www.esccom.org.za.
Asiphinze sinimukele nati tindzaba. Indvuna yelitiko letemfundvo umhlonishwa owenqumalo ithi bothishelanhloko labahlalise bafundzi labangakenti kahle ebangeni laka Form 5 pheceleti gap year labafise ukubuyela esikolweni abalandze ngoba kusemthethweni. Indvuna ithi uhulumende utibekele ligoli lekucinisekisa ukuthi wonke umfana loliswati uniketwa litfuba lekufundza lelifanele.
Kulabafundi labangu-22,761 labahlala babhala lihlelo lelibanga laka Form 5 kunalabatfola imiphumela lengasiyo lemihle labafise kubuyela esikolweni bende libanga laka Form 4. Lokutfolwe ngilomsakade kusiletinye tikolwa atikabemukeli labafunzi bacelwe ukuthi bahlale umnyaka munye ekhaya pheceleti gap year. Indvuna yetiko letemfundvo umhlonishwa owenqumalo ithi bothishelanhloko bede nani lithuluzi letemfundvo lelibaniketa imandla ukuthi bahlalise bafundze ekhaya.
Bo principal lapha baceliwe lokuthi abahambe bayochisa kuleti tikolo kepha na akusho lokhu sibesebenta ema-decision la ukhanza ukuthi akekho emthethweni nawe nje nasisakhula lakhoza nawufuna ungaphasi uyaphinza sikhule nje soke phela besiye etikolweni nangabe kwamlo kanjani form 3 awukamphasi uyamphinza form 5 awukamphasi uyamphinza manje nase bathi labantwana abayemakhaya akusiko lokukahle lokho naloko sitawucela nje ukuthi labantwana babangabahambisi sisatoyibuka lenzaba sibone ukuthi lokwenteke kutiphi isikolo so that bo-REO babasonzelele phela babambisane because naso umfana akahlala ekhaya akusiko lokusho ngulumende lokho uhulumende ukuthi wonke umfana akayisikolweni nangabe umfana akende kahle uyaphinza kuze kuthi agcine aphumelele noma phela kufeyila kusho kusekugcina kwempilo so lo mfana sosakahlala ekhaya utawendane lekhaya nasacabanga kwenta letinye izinto sidabe sesenda kanjani angibacele nje bo principal ukuthi labantwana nangabe babahlalisile ekhaya sidakucela ukuthi babalanze because lokho akukho vele emthethweni.
Mengameli wenhlangano yabothishela nhloko kuleli Armstrong Dlamini uthi tikola tiyayititendele kude vele lithuluzi leniketa abothishela nhloko imvume yokuhlalisa abafundi ekhaya uma bangakenti kahle.
Leto tikola letikwentako tiyatendela nje kude le police le guide lokho vele kwanyalo noma wabuka lemithetho yetemfundo usetele police lofuna kuyile esikolweni kwentekani ngaye sithi police vele le guide lokho sakanye bathi ke vele lethi isikole sikwadiko tiyabathatha labantwana ukhanze kusinyanya befundza asengibekise kulesami so buka uza asengiyozama unahle sebude ngicandile phansi ka form 4 into lenhle sikuthathako nazi sikubonile nje nazi nami nginabo nje la abantu startup ngikubonako ke emsakade baperforma kahle labantu balaba startup ukhanze ukuthi sebenza kahle vele ngoba sebayadi ukuthi bafunana esikolweni.
Litiko ke lincuse tikola ukuthi tincuthulise tiko ngelihovisi lelibukete emfundo esifundzeni ngaphambi kwekuthi tithathe tincumo letitawutsinza noma titsikabede bafundzi. Lobikako nguSamkalisiwe Khoza eZulwini.
Indvuna yelitiko letemfundvo umhlonishwa owenxumalo ithi kude isikolo lokumele sikhulise imali yesikolo phecelezi ama-top up fees singakancuthulisi yetiko. Indvuna bekhuluma kulandzela ukuthi kube nabothishela nhloko labangama-30 litiko lelibathathele tinyathelo ngayo lendzaba.
Litiko nalo belenda umsebenzi walo belilandzela wona umthetho kepha na ke ufuna sikhulumisane sibone lokuthi lokho sikulungisa kanjani kepha le top up ngayichaza nje ukuthi le top up nangabe khona into lethithe nifuna kuyenda noma nifuna kwakha umthoyi iba nesikhathi niyabhala uqala kube nemhlangano nivumelane nabatali basayine phansi ukuthi batawukhipha imali engaka kushiyo ukuthi le mali abayikhiphako isukela kuphi iya kuphi lo bese kwenzeka ke la tikolweni bokhanza ukuthi le top up iseyidonsa labanye bo 5 years ukhanze ukuthi labanye benda le top up abaka approvewa etiko so litiko la bese liyabona ukuthi lento senteka kakhulu la bese kuba khona ke leto tinyathelo letithathako ingonyama isithume ukuthi kungabi nemsindo letikolweni but ke ufuna sikhulumisane siyibone sekugcineni kwako konke siyilungisa kanjani ile top up iapprove indvuna so nabe khona bafuna kuyenda babhalele litiko indvuna iauthorize leyo top up litawusho ukuthi icela nini igcina nini bangabe bayatendela lama top up noma labanye nje ukhanza ukuthi labothishela sebavele nje bafake ama top up bangaceli nokucela ke etiko.
Losabambe kuba ngumphathi wenkampani yemandi nomahlobo eMatiwane uthile uhlelo lokumikisa emandi esiveni lolesekelwe libhange lemhlaba litawubona eMaswati langetulo kwa 38,000 atfola emandi lahlobile kuphindze kwakhiwe netindlu tangansense letingu 10,000. Matiwane bekakhuluma ngesikhathi lenkampani ichazela betindzaba ngalolu hlelo.
Libhange lemhlaba iWorld Bank ngomnyaka wa-2019 licale kwesekela ngemali lengu-815 million emalangeni lihlelo lokumikisa emandi esiveni saseshiselweni kusukela enhlangano kufika esiphambanweni enkundleni yaseSikwe. Inkampani yemandi kuleli njengenkampani lechuba lomsebenzi ibambe umhlangano nebetindzaba kodwa betindzaba loluhlelo lapho khona losabambe kuba ngumphathi wale nkampani nomahlubi Matiwane athi loluhlelo tawuphindze lunakete kuhlandeka kulesifundza.
The objectives of this project is deliberate and forward-looking to increase access to improve water supply and sanitation services in the Nhlangano Phambanweni corridor of the Shiselweni region, while strengthening sector institutions and policy frameworks related to drought resilience, water resources management, and water sanitation and hygiene services.
Lobukele lihlelo nobuhle Mathebula uthi nahulumende naye njengoba kusemgomeni wakhe ukuthuthukisa inhlelo tekufinyelelisa imali lahlobile esiveni naye kunemali layifakile kulolu hlelo.
The project components are divided into four. We have component 1, which has sub-components. 1.1, which is to the value about 32.2 million USD, equivalent to about interest rate 512 emalangeni.
Uma lolu hlelo selifike emaphethelweni emani lahlobile atawufinyelela esiveni saseshiselweni lesingu-38,000 kube netikole etingamashumi 34 nemitfolampilo lemine letawusitakala ngemali netekuhlandeka kanti kubheke ukuthi ngenyanga yenhlaba kulo mnyaka sive sesicalile sidla lamandi. Lobikako nguSamkasiwe Khoza eMbabane.
Umphathi wamaphoyisa Vusima noma Masango uthi likusasa lokuphoyisa angeke lishintshwe dicubulo ema-slogans kodwa litawushintshwa yimfumvo. Emaphoyisa latiphatha kahle kanye nemaphoyisa lanemicondvo lobukeli kusasa visionary officers. Umphathi wamaphoyisa ukusho lokho ngesikhathi amaphoyisa longu-27 aphothula athola titifiketi tawo te-diploma in police science.
Lokufunza kwalamaphoyisa lavele tifundzeni totini telakuleli lobeqhubeka ekolishi lemaphoyisa kuMathapha Police Academy kuthatha iminyaka lengu-3. Umphathi wemaphoyisa kuleli Vusima noma Masango uthi lamaphoyisa afunza kabanti ngetindlela tekuphoyisa, afunza ngebucala tebuchwepheshe, abajinge futhi bafunza ngekuphenya ngebuciko i-forensic investigation kanye nangebuholi.
To the graduates, balancing work and study are not easy. It requires sacrifice. It requires discipline. It requires resilience. As was acknowledged in previous address, completing this rigorous program is no small achievement.
Uthi akupheleli nje lapha kuleti tifiketi labatitholako uthi abakhumbule njalo sifungo sabo sephoyisa lekumele basifeze ngebunvu uthi kuhlonipheke ngomaphoyisa kusentshetshela njalo kodwa ke kulimala kwesifundisayo amaphoyisa kwenteka ngekuphathima kweliso nje. Lokhulumele abafunzi ngiPatricia Simelane ubonga umphathi emaphoyisa labafundise tifundvo kanye naletinye tisebenti emaphoyiseni ekwenta kuba semaphoyiseni kube indzawo lebavumelako ukuthi bakhule engcondvweni kanye nasetifundvweni tabo.
Thank you for creating an environment that allowed us to grow intellectually and professionally. Your discipline, mentorship, and encouragement shaped us into better leaders and better officers.
Lokhulume ngetifundvo talamaphoyisa ngibhekuthemba Dlamini uthi letifundvo leti tisezingeni lelingilo wethemba ukuthi kutawukhula njalo kufunze emaphoyiseni.
Full accreditation for this program. It is accredited, it can be offered worldwide. It has that prestige and it is going to grow leaps and bounds, we believe.
Umphathi emaphoyisa uthi ngenyanga endlovu lenkulu eminyakeni wa-2024 kuhlukubetana ngetebulili kanye nelidlame emakhaya kwaveta njengaloko lokuhlasela live lonke. Uthi bucala balolu hlobo buyachubeka nekuhlakati imimango ngakho lamaphoyisa latfulele letifiketi umelena nawo wadlala inzima ekulweni nalobucala baleli hlobo. Lobikako nguFortune Dlangamandla kanti itfombe litfolakele emaphoyiseni ehlangothini letekuqhumana.
Inkampani yeMandi ithi iyayilungisa indzaba yokuphazamiseka kwekufinyelela kweMandi la esiveni kuletinye tindzawo eMbabane lalifaka ikhasi embolonjeni ngoyoyo kanye nakumakholokolo. Lobukete kuchumana kule nkampani ehlobele ejele uthi ngemgcibelo kuleli viki lesimo sitawube sesikahle sive sitfole iMandi ngendlela lefanele.
Siyinkampani yeMandi sithandza kwatisa emakhasimende etfu lahlala eMbabane ngema shortages lasabe khona eMandini. Lokhu info lesike sabanayo endzaweni yasembolonjeni sawatisa emakhasimende etfu ngalama interruptions laba khona. Sitendile ke netaba kokuthi emakhasimende abe nawo ama alternative water points lapho khona atfola khona eMandi makaba nalokucima. Siyakhuthata nje
endleleni kokuthi sive sisatise uma sinalapho ama-interruptions noma khona lapho khona nakababona tindzawo lapho khona kuchitheka emanti khona imvamisa yesikhathi lokwehlisa ema-reservoirs ethu ngoma lizinga lemanti kuma-reservoirs ethu ngiko lokuthi kusuke kunemaphayiphi labhubukile etindzaweni letifihlakele so sinkampani yemanti siyadependa kakhulu kumakhasimende ethu ukuthi asatise makabona tindzawo la kuchitheka khona emanti lapho khona-ke la sibone khona kokuthi kunemanti la kuchithekako sinkampani yemanti sesivele implementile ma-corrective measures sesiwalungisile lawo maphayiphi kepha siyabona lokuthi tikhona letinye tindzawo letisesenawo lawo maphayiphi labhubukile so siyakhuthata nje we rely kakhulu esiveni ukuthi sisatise nangabe kunemanti lakuchithekako sitawukhona kokuthi silungise sikhiphile-ke i-notice ngoma simemetelo lesatisa emakhasimende ngale nkinga lesivelele siyachubeka siyayisebenta lena ndzaba siyathembisa nokokuthi emanti atabe saka-stable atabe sekasezingeni lelikahle by 21 February lapho khona kungu-Saturday.
Sibe sasesibhiki sinesikhalo mayelana nekukhethwa kwaloyo lowake waphatha lelidolobha Mzwandile Nzinisa ukuthi abe ingcenye yelibandla labacondzisi ipheceleti Town Planning Board njengokuphakamisa kwayo indvuna yetindlu nekuthuthukiswa kwamadolobha. Bapalane we-Pigs Ratepayers Association Pastor Vilakati uthi lokukhalisa lesive ukuthi lowe kunene usaphenyelwa emacala lakawenda asasebenta kuleli dolobha ngako angeke bakhone ukusebenzisana naye kungakacatululwa letinsolo. Vilakati bekhulumana akaxoxisana nensathelo nomsakato ngomsambuluko.
Mzwandile Nzinisa ubengumphathi welidolobha lasesibhiki iminyaka lelishumi kusukela ngeminyaka wa-2015 kuthi made kube ngulo wa-2025 kanti kulesikhathi kube khona kuhishana phakathi kwakhe kanye nelibandla lemakhansela bufaka ikhathi nazo sive ngetinsolo tekukhwabanisa.
Mhlawumbe utawubanga ukuthi kungasebenteki kahle alokuthi ndawukhumbula ukuthi utholakele ukuthi vele wasilahlekisela timali khona la and leto timali usengikade ibhadala i-PAC nayo lelinye libandla lelifikile latophenya lathola vele lokuthi imali tethu tonakele under lo CEO wethu former CEO sesiyethuka-ke ukuthi minister noma kumbe i-ministry seyiphindze imqasha njani ukuthi atowengamela futhi abuyele ebhodini.
Vilakati uchubeka uyakhonkosela kuyo indvuna ukuthi imane imise kusebenta kwakhe Nzinisa ukuthi made kugocote lona luphenyo.
I-ministry imele ukuthi mhlambe kuphele leliphenyo bese-ke iyamkhetha nangabe kukhona leli kuthandzako kuye.
Phambilini sike sabika-ke ukuthi asikakhoni ukuchumana nayo indvuna yetindlu nekuthuthukiswa kwamadolobha kodwa-ke sibe sesiyayitfola ukuthi sikhanyisela kabanti ngale ntsabamo.
Isive sitawukhumbula sinangifike ehhovisi la ngakhanza kunekhuluma lokwakhona between CEO wase-Pigspeak nema-ratepayers akhona nekhansela yakhona sayibida ikhansela we had several meetings nabo sibonisana sitawenda umsindo ungacethwa kanjani sakhipha inspection silidiko lapha ekhathi emthethweni nathu wetindlela tekuhlola lidolobha siyalihlola nge-inspection nasekhona into lengumsindo siyalihlola futhi nange-commission of inquiry. Le inspection yona ayendiwa ibe public kakhulu ngoba isuke kuyindlela nje ukuthi litiko la-understand ukuthi kwentekani lenkhathi but nayo yendiwa abantu laba-independent so sakwenda-ke lokho yabuya i-report ye-inspection yefike yathi kude kuqala yaconcluda lokho ukuthi kude buqala emkhathini wemcashi nesisebenti lokungumzwandile nekhansela yasesibhiki ema-ratepayers abesaentatini noma i-association yama-ratepayers bese kufakala ukuthi kukhiwe emahhovisi kwenteke tinto letinjengaleto ngingololo kwanesithetha lokuthi sende le inspection but le conclusion yase ithi kude lokungakanani lokungakukhomba la except that baclasha ngema-personalities nje omnye ufa ngathi lo muntu akasithathi serious naye Mzinisa eve ngathi ama-ratepayers ngathi sikagcumukele kakhulu kuloku administrative i-council nayo imelapha but ekugcineni kwako konke kwase kuyavunyelwana between the parties kakhulu between i-council naye Nzinisa lokho kucha abehlukane nje behlukane kahle kude lokugangele lomnye kude lokunjani so le ukuthi khona laphenyelwa kona Mzwandile asikwadi ngizingelo
kubika Thabiso Maphanga esibhikini.
Inhlangano yabalimi ikuleli Eswatini National Agriculture Union ithi sesifikile isikhathi sekuthi umbila nanawo sale ubangu leminye yetilimo letilinywa lapho kuniselwa khona irrigated crop. Lenhlangano ikusho lokhu kulandzela ukuthi ihambe ihlole isimo emasimini eveni lonke lapho ibuye nesijubo lesithi umbila lomnyenti ulinyetwe lilanga lebelishisa kabi emalangeni lengcile. Umphathi walenhlangano Thami Dlamini uthi kusengconywana enkangala njengoba khona kuhle kulala emadolo.
Besithembile ukuthi kulo mnyaka lo kubelina nje ebesithi isivuno sitaba sinengi nebalimi bebaphume ngetinkani nawungabuka nje endzaweni encumbi imimbila lebese ishakada beyimnengi nemimbila lebese icala ukuthi ngathi seyitaqala ifake itibhuluja bese yinengi. Kusete ke nyalo lesingasho ukuthi singavele sibahlangabete ngako balimi sekungilokubuka lesimo lesi sichubeke sikhulumisane nebalimi sichubeke sikhulumisane nalesebenzisana nabo sikhulumisane nelitiko kusenetingoni ke lekusafuna sibukisane tona yokuqala nje ukuthi phela nalombila ngalokuthi silimo lesisatiko ukuthi siyasinga eveni awungene la kulama schemes ekuthi lathola emanti lesithi ma irrigated schemes ukukhulumisana ke nahulumende ukuthi kwanyalo inkinga bekusabukeke kakhulu the commercial aspect ukuthi encenye umbila ude imali encenye umbila ude kahle inzuzo kodwa ke kuphila kwelive ukuthi kube nembila laveni nasawuchubeka sithembe ukuthi umbila sitawulanza ube khona ukuthi siyawu importer indlela lengasile enhle yokuphila leyo. Indzaba ke yokunisela inalama limitations ukuthi kokucala kufuna uwadi lokuthi uphi umfula nawulenda sekugcineni kwemasimi akho uyakudulela. Kwesibili kwawona lamandi lamfuleni sekaqala lokuba mancane ke-allocatewa nje nyalo kutabe discusswa kona ukuthi kunama water kota la khona ingcombe yale mifula lekhona ukwenza ukuthi lamandi le wabonako wena ukuthi ayenca sekavele ebantu seka-allocatewa lamakota.
26 minutes after 6 bahlothe makethe sewe yamasinyane.
Eswatini Communications Commission is calling out all high school students in the Kingdom of Eswatini to join in the High School Short Film Competition. This is a competition where you are invited to create a 1-minute film with a comprehensive beginning, middle, and end. When you have created that film, you're going to send it through in an email to broadcasting@escom.org.nz. Make sure that your head teacher knows about this and that he writes or she writes a letter to ESCOM in that email saying that this is the group that is going to represent their school. So all the 4 regions in Eswatini are invited. You can have your film in either English, Siswati, or sign language. So whatever story you have, make sure that it's original. It's a story that's written by you. It's a story that is going to be representative of the creativity that your school has. So bring it on. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for filmmakers. We're looking for young creators. We're looking for young directors in the Kingdom of Eswatini to join the party and come on and see what kind of prizes that you can win that will make you a superstar one day. So join the competition.
Eswatini Medical Christian University. Applications are now open for the 2026 academic year. Study Bachelor of Computer Science, Medical Laboratory Science, Nursing Science, Psychology, Radiography, Social Work, Pharmacy, Medicine and Surgery. To apply, scan the QR code on your screen or visit www.mku.ac.sz. Submit your completed application to the registry area before the 7th of April 2026. Excellence in education. Commitment to service.
Asiphinze sinemukele siqhubeka nato tindzaba litiko letemcebo phansi nemandla ehlangothini lolwengamele emanti eveni lihlanganise labasebenzisa emanti kakhulukati balimi labakhulu kanye nalabo labasemkhathini emhlanganweni isikolo yokukoleka imifo yabo mayelana nekwenyuswa kwentengo yemanti. Akhulumana kuvula lomhlangano lobekade amelele mabhalane lomkhulu kulelitiko sicelo nxumalo uvetile ukuthi itimo kufaka ekhathi kugucuka kwesimo selitulu kanye nekuntengantenga kwemnotho kuyasifaka sandla ekuthikabeteni kongiwa kwemanti eveni.
Umlimi lomncane nalomkhulu akabe kusaba nebulungiswa lekhatsini nababhadala imali elinganako ngakho leli tiko libone kukuhle ukuthi lisukume lihlanganise tinhlangothi etitsindzekako emetameni ekutfola indlela yekuhlukanisa letindleko.
A uniform pricing approach would not adequately reflect these differences. It was therefore agreed that a more structured and differentiated framework was necessary to promote equity, sustainability, and fairness. Increasing demand, climate variability, infrastructure pressures, and financial sustainability challenges continue to strain our water resource management systems.
Sekayetfulile inkulumo yamabhalane lomkhulu kencumalo indlu ibese iba nato tiphakamiso kanye nemibuto.
How are we going to regulate the pricing going forward? Is there going to be any regulatory authority?
Nimane mnika le permit lo muntu enforcer inokuthi hamba phela ufaka imithi uma niyamnika nje le permit uyekelwe kanjani.
Bengaproposa noma ngincome lokuthi ufuna sikubuke nalokuthi ke lama harvesting singabuki lamadamu lamakhulu kuphela naletinye tindzawo la kulama river basin kube khona la kusukune storage salamandi.
Sitawumisa kanjani ine case whereby umlimi wami lone permit a permit holder umile kunisela akanisela maybe it's zero abstraction kuleyo permit but le permit occupy allocation on the national volume yemandi lesingasebenta ngawo sakhe ibusiness
akachajwa njengema low profit margins crops mhlawumbe lokho sidakubuka sisachubekana le pricing yethu nyalo sekungasibambelela.
How do we then incentivize those water users that will be using their highly efficient systems like shifting from the sprinkler irrigation to the drip?
Lendzaba yenzengo yemandi eveni ibuketwa nje nemtsetfo lowengamele kusebenziswa kwawo imandi eveni weminyaka u-2003 nawo uyabuketwa. Kubika Thabiso Maphanga ehotela esipiki.
Kudola kwempahla bekuku 2.1% enyangeni lephelile ngokusho kwembiko lobuka kudola kwempahla Consumer Price Index Report. Lo mbiko ukhishwe luhlangothi lwetelicwaningo etiko letekihlela umnotfo Central Statistics Office ngemsombuluko eNthambama.
Lo mbiko uyaveta ukuthi lokudula kwempahla etitolo lebekade kuku 2.1% enyangeni lephelile kukhomba kwehla nga 0.2% nakucathaniswa neminyaka lophelile ngenyanga yeNgongoni lapho khona bekuku 2.3%. Kuphindze kukhombe kwehla nga 2% nakucathaniswa nenyanga Bhimbidvwane eminyakeni lophelile lapho khona bekuku 4.1%. Kudula kwempahla goods enyangeni lephelile ngekusho kwalombiko bekuku 2.2% kanti kudula kwempahla lengaphatheki ema services ngona bekuku 2%. Nakucathaniswa inyanga nenyanga kubukwa inyanga yeNgongoni yeminyakeni lophelile nenyanga lephelile umehluko ekuduleni kwempahla etitolo kube ku 0.3%. Nakubukwa umnyaka neminyaka kudula kwempahla kwehlile kutemphilo kusuka ku 7.9% eminyakeni lophelile ngenyanga yaBhimbidvwane kwafika ku 0.5% enyangeni lephelile. Lokhu kubangwe kungakhuli kakhulu kwenthengo kulolu hlangothi kakhulu kwelusito lwetemphilo ema-medical services. Lugwayi netshwala nema-narcotics kona kwehlile kusuka ku 11.2% ngenyanga yaBhimbidvwane eminyakeni lophelile kwefika ku 5% enyangeni lephelile. Lokhu kubangwe kungakhuli kakhulu kwenthengo ikakhulu yabhiya neluwayini. Lenye impahla miscellaneous goods naleyo lengaphatheki lokufaka ekhatsi umshwalense ikhulile enyangeni lephelile yefika ku 1.6% kanti bekungakakhuli ngenyanga yeNgongoni yeminyakeni lophelile. Emahotela netindzawo tekungcebeleka tona tinciphe kusuka ku 0.8% ngenyanga yeNgongoni eminyakeni lophelile tefika ku -0.5% enyangeni lephelile. Lobikako Nelson Dlangamandla eMbabane.
Kuleti chamuka enkantolo lenkulu umbuso uthi kude la kuphatamisa khona bomsolwa lababekwe emacala ebuphekula sikhuni uma bafihlelwe emabito abofakazi. Umbiko ngalendzaba le kanye naletinye letendeke enkantolo lenkulu uyalandzela.
Umbuso kusho lokho emaphepheni lasenkantolo lapho khona umsola Clement Kunene kanye namsindiso Musa Ntshalintshali bafuna umbuso adalule emabiti abofakazi kulamacala lababhekene nawo. Umbuso uthi lokumcoka kakhulu ukuthi bomsola bathi ngetinsolo letisuke tibhekiswe kubo. Umbuso uthi kude ngishona kancane kungadi ngemabiti abofakazi lapho kungaphadamisa khona bomsola nakusatekwe emacala abo. Umbuso wengeta ngekuthi uma ngemuva kwekuthi umsola abone fakazi enkantolo kanti usafuna uke amhlole limuva lakhe leyo fakazi. Umsolo angacela enkantolo ukuthi kutewa kwelicala lakhe kuchutshelwe empili. Ngaleto sizathu umbuso uthi indzaba yokuthi bomsolo abangaphadamiseka ekutekeni kwelicala indvo lengekho nje njengalokhu bukhona bulungiswa labangabutfole enkantolo. Umbuso uthi kufanele ukuthi emabiti abofakazi afihlwe kakhulukati emacaleni alababekwe emacala etiphekula sikhuni njengalokhu kunobungoti lobukhulu kakhulu kubofakazi. Esikhathini lesengcile bomsolo abakhala ngekuthi lokungade emabiti abofakazi kubenta abangakhoni kulungiselela labakhala ngekuthi nabasafunza lobufakazi baye batitshele ukuthi lo fakazi lona ngozibani banyana kodwa mase kuthi nasekavela enkantolo leyo fakazi bese bayabona ukuthi ayikhona kusuye leyo fakazi bekaze bamcabanga. Umbuso umelwe ngeadvocate Zweli Zakwe labamele ngummeli wabo Sibusiso Nhlabathi kanye nemmeli Professor Dlamini. Esikhathi kuhlanganiswa lombiko lendzaba le bekusamele ingene embiko lijaji lenkantolo lenkulu uNkosinathi Maseko. Akulokunye khona lapha enkantolo lenkulu indvodza isolwa ngekutama kubulala kanye nekuthumba amakhenikhi kulandzela ukuthi lo makhenikhi anyamalale nemotolo yakhe kanye nekufumba amakhenikhi angigeri Isabelo Davis loneminyaka leng-34 budzala wendzawo yaseBethani. Licala labekwe lona ngilelo lekutama kubulala lo makhenikhi longusincamiso Dube endzaweni yakalobamba lomdzala. Umsolwa ngekuthi wageca kabi Dube enhloko wasuphinze futhi umshaya umtimba wonke ngenhloso yekumbulala. Lesibili kungilelo lekufumba usolwa ngekulenta kunye naPaul Dlamini loneminyaka leng-27 ibudzala waseBethani kanye naZipho Ndlangamandla loneminyaka leng-23 ibudzala wendzawo yaseNgwane Park. Onke lamacala usolwa ngekwenta nathi ngu-15 kule nyanga lesetulu. Umsolwa sawugijimele enkantolo lenkulu lapho atokhongosela khona imvumo yekutokela ngephandle. Ufike wathi salijaji lalenkantolo uBongani Dlamini ukuthi nathi ngu-11 kule nyanga lesetulu wathenga imotolo elihlobo ye-BMW 1 Series kumuntu. Uthi kwathe ukuthi mhla ka-13 kule nyanga yona lena lesetulu wasucela makhenikhi Dube ukuthi akamlungisele le motolo. Umsolwa uchubeka ukuthi lo makhenikhi bekamthembise ukuthi le motolo utayilungisa ngalelo langa bese uyamniketa. Umsolo uchubeka usakuyanga ngemagama engehla njengalokho lo makhenikhi akadanga ilethe le motolo. Uthi noma sekabathi uyamshayela elicingweni lutho bese angasabambi lo makhenika. Umsola wathi salijaji Dlamini ukuthi wasiyobika lendzaba emaphoyiseni asesigodveni. Uthi liphoyisa lakaDube lamsida lashaya lo makhenikhi liwathembisa ukuthi imotolo itawube seyilungile ngelanga lelilandzelako lekungumhla ka-14 kule nyanga lesetulu lokulisuku lwetithandzana iValentine's Day. Uthi ngalolu suku lelo wavukela khona lapho kukhenikela lo makhenika. Uthi nakefika watfola ngekho lo makhenika imotolo ingekho kanti nelicingo bekangasalibambi. Umsolwa uthi bekakade ahamba naPaul Dlamini. Uthi bangasamfuni kanje emakhenikhi njengaloku bamfuna lilanga lonke. Uthi bagcina sebamtfola kumahlanya lapho bamtfola akhelela kabi eMankwebevu makhenikhi aDube. Uthi lo makhenikhi wabatisa ukuthi utawuhamba nabo ayobakhomba lapho ikhona khona le motolo. Wengeta ngekuthi basesekhaya kibo eBethani kwafika emaphoyisa aseMalkens abakhanza basaxoxisana nalo makhenikhi. Uthi lamaphoyisa abathatha abayise eMalkens lapho bafike babeka khona lamacala. Uthi kungumanje akayathi le motolo yakhe kuthi kuphi. Umsolwa ucela kuyotokela ngephandle njengalokho athi kugcina kwakhe esitokisini kuyomlahlekisela ngemsebenzi ka-AG Thomas lapho abambe khona. Umbuso akwasiphikisa isicelo semsolwa sekutokela ngephandle. Lijaji libe selinika umsolwa imvume yokutokela ngephandle lebithi imali engu-15,000 emalangeni. Lijaji libe selithi akayishaye phansi bemaphepha leng-3,000 emalangeni bese lelesele leng-12,000 emalangeni iba sibambiso sembahla. Lobikako ngiFortune Dlangamandla ngisenkantolo lenkulu.
Kunatite imidlalo selisukile likhethelo lakuleli sithebe samhlekazi yokulibhekisa eNingizimu Afrika lapho liyongenela khona indzebe yeCOSAFA yabomake. Umphathi wenhlangano yebhola kuleli Frederick Mgomedulu uthi leli khethelo alihambe litimisele likhombe ukuthi ikhona incubekela phambili eveni. Mgomedulu ukhulumena akakhipha leli khethelo lisaya kule midlalo kalobamba.
Fikaphelisa lona likhethelo lesifo mphathi wenhlangano ledlalisa ibhola kuleli Frederick Mgomezulu uthi bayaconza ukuthi le midlalo etobanga kuleli khuni kepha-ke abahambe badlale batimisele bakhombe ukuthi incubekela phambili ikhona evene.
Akukhathalekile ukuthi embi kwakho kunabani nasenisenkundleni yemidlalo webhola kubheka ukuthi lona losovele ucondzene naye utame ngawo onke amandla nangabo bonke ebuciko lentabeni lenifundiswe bona naye ndaphindze nitshelwe bona embili ukuthi awu singenta ngcono kanjani. Thine nje ebholeni asikanikhoki nje ukuthi niyogcwalisa inombolo. Sinikhokhele ukuthi nihambe nitikhandle nisebenze nibuye nemiphumela lekhombakalisa ukuthi ikhona incubela phambili kunalapho besikhona eminyakeni lophelile.
Umqeqeshi walolu khethelo Bongani Makhukhula uthi emalungiselelo lababe nawo abanika lithemba ukuthi badodlala kahle.
This time around the performance is expected to be much better, and the preparations lesibenawo kukhona la siniketa yona a glimpse of hope ukuthi khona lesitakwenda.
Captain walolu khethelo Simangele Sikhonze uthi batatimisela ke kule midlalo.
Satawuphuma ngaphandle siyathembisa ukuthi emandla ngewona lesitawafaka njengoba coach bebasifundisile kuko konke labasifundise kona. Ngicabanga ukuthi sitawu-applya konke groundini sikhone ku-achieve results la better.
Sithe bese group B kanye neBotswana, Zambia kanye neZimbabwe. Umdlalo wokuqala ungalesine kuleli viki lapho khona lithuthulana neBotswana. Leli khethelo selivele lisukile kuleli libhekise khona ePolokwane eNingizimu Afrika. Libekele umsakazo weSwatini TV temidlalo ngiphathiswa Msibi kalobamba.
Satiphetha ngalo temidlalo sibahlole makethe siyabuya masinyane.
To all the viewers of Eswatini TV in the kingdom and beyond. Eswatini TV is regulated by the Eswatini Communications Commission through the Broadcasting Code and Broadcasting Guidelines. Under these instruments, the station commits to broadcasting information and news that have been fact-checked, programs and content in respectful language with no elements of hate speech, violence or sexual activity. If you hear any unsuitable content on this channel, you have a right to voice your complaints with the station management. Should you not be satisfied with the response or action taken, you can escalate your matter to the Communications Commission at PO Box 7811 Babani. Call 2406 7000 or send an email to info@esccom.org.za. For more information, visit www.esccom.org.za.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Right about now, we'll look at a clip from the World Health Organization as they look into how they can continue to be able to intervene efficiently all around the world.
Good morning, honourable ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the WHO Health Emergency Appeal 2026. To begin, I have the honour of inviting our co-host to deliver opening remarks, His Excellency Mr. Noel White, Permanent Representative of Ireland to the United Nations in Geneva.
Thank you very much. Director General, colleagues, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all here this morning to launch the WHO Health Emergency Appeal 2026, and delighted to do this morning, co-hosting with my colleague from Norway. DG, it's self-evident, and we have discussed this in many places, that the world faces multiple and indeed overlapping health emergencies, from climate-driven crises to conflict-induced health service delivery disruptions, and to the ever-present threat of pandemics. And these pressing global health threats are fueling deeper, longer-lasting health crises, and of course, as a result, putting the world's most vulnerable at even greater risk. The fact of the matter is that every humanitarian crisis is a health crisis. And the work of the WHO's Health Emergencies Programme, the agility and the rapid response of the contingency fund for emergencies, and indeed the WHO's collaboration with civil society and other partners remains crucial if we are to support countries in preventing and preparing for and responding to and indeed recovering from health emergencies. It's been a difficult year for the WHO and for many others in the multilateral community, but we're glad to see that the Health Emergencies Programme remains a priority for this organisation. And now more than ever, the WHO has a crucial role to play in assessing public health risks and needs, in fulfilling its coordinating and working together with all health actors so that the skills are used to maximum effect. At precisely the moment when we should be coming together in solidarity to secure better health for all, we are seeing significant reductions in the volume of official development assistance, with very real negative impacts on the health and the well-being of those who need it most. Like others, Director General and colleagues, Ireland will not look away, and humanitarian assistance is an integral part of our foreign policy, of our values in action. Partnering with the WHO is an expression of solidarity with crisis-affected communities and a demonstration of our commitment to the right to health for all. Ireland is proud to support the WHO's humanitarian function through unearmarked contributions and through flexible, predictable support for the contingency fund for emergencies. In 2025, we have been amongst the largest donors to the fund. And for the period 26-28, we are further committed to provide predictable financing, which includes a specific allocation for emergencies, amongst other areas. We remain deeply committed to enhancing global health generally, to strengthening health systems, and to accelerating progress towards universal health coverage. And we are fully supportive of the WHO and the protection of health and well-being, especially for those in crisis. We believe that together we can save lives, we can safeguard health as a universal right, and we can help communities to rebuild in the wake of crises. So as ever, Director General, we will be with you in support. We will complement your efforts, and we work together with you to achieve better outcomes for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and for Ireland's strong support to global health. I now have the pleasure in inviting the WHO Director General, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, to deliver his remarks.
Thank you, Ambassador White, for your support. Thank you so much. Excellencies, honorable ministers, ambassadors, dear partners, colleagues, and friends. Thank you for joining us for the launch of the WHO Health Emergency Appeal for 2026. Around 1/4 billion people are living through humanitarian crises that have stripped away safety, shelter, and access to healthcare. These are families displaced again and again, children growing up amid conflict, communities experiencing crisis after crisis with little opportunity to recover. For millions of people, crisis is no longer an interruption to life. It has become the condition of life. Health systems in fragile settings are under sustained strain. When they falter, the consequences are immediate and severe. These pressures are unfolding in a global context that has changed. And many governments face real fiscal constraints, and political attention is turning inward. Resources are being redirected toward the domestic priorities, including defense. Global defense spending now exceeds 2.5 trillion US dollars a year, while humanitarian and health financing is experiencing its sharpest decline in a decade. The result is a widening gap between what people need and what the system can provide. Nearly 10 years ago, in the aftermath of Ebola, member states created the WHO Health Emergencies Program. The purpose was clear: to protect lives during emergencies while strengthening national health systems, not bypassing them. Since then, the program has reshaped how WHO works in crisis. It has enabled earlier detection of outbreaks and faster response to emergencies. Last year, WHO responded to 50 emergencies across 82 countries and territories, supporting more than 30 million people with essential health services. We helped keep thousands of health facilities functioning, and we sustained outbreak detection and response in fragile settings. In recent months, we have stood with WHO teams and partners in some of the world's most fragile settings. We have listened to families who have fled repeatedly. We have spoken with health workers who continue their work under fire. We have seen clinics destroyed, ambulances targeted, and health workers killed. We have seen patients turned away when medicines run out, and women forced to give birth in unsafe conditions. Amid these pressures, one constant remains: health as a human right. Health enables a child in Ukraine to keep learning because vaccines and mental health support are available. It allows a mother in the occupied Palestinian territory to deliver safely in a temporary clinic. It keeps cholera at bay in camps in Sudan. It ensures that people living with diabetes in Yemen can survive displacement and loss. In 2026, WHO is adapting its emergency response again. We are applying the discipline of emergency medicine, focusing first on actions that save lives. We're placing greater emphasis on country leadership and local partnerships. We're concentrating on areas where WHO adds the greatest value and reducing duplication so that every dollar has maximum impact. Today, WHO is appealing for $1 billion to sustain its emergency operations in 2026. These resources are needed to maintain essential health services, prevent outbreaks, and support those delivering care in the hardest conditions. Predictable and flexible funding allows WHO to act early and prevent emergencies from escalating at far greater human and financial cost. This appeal is a call to stand with people living through conflict, displacement, and disaster. It's a call to keep health at the heart of humanitarian action. I thank you. And moderator, back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tedros. And next we'll hear from Haiti and Ukraine, where WHO is working in partnership with the government and local partners. First, I invite Her Excellency, Ms. Anne-Catherine Laseg, Permanent Representative of Haiti to the United Nations in Geneva.
Thank you so much for giving me the floor. Mr. Director General, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, I thank the World Health Organization for bringing us together at this crucial moment. The health emergency appeal is not merely a financial mechanism. It's a lifeline for millions of people whose health and survival depends on our collective actions. For Haiti, health emergency setting is not a theoretical notion. It's a daily reality. Our country is facing overlapping crises: insecurity, population displacement, climate shock, earthquake, fragile infrastructure, and persistent humanitarian needs. This pressure places immense strain on our already fragile health system and, above all, on our population, particularly women, children, and the most vulnerable communities. Since 2010, Haiti has experienced a nearly uninterrupted succession of emergencies. The 2010 earthquake, followed by the cholera epidemic, marked the beginning of a decade of successive shocks. The following years saw the emergence of epidemics such as chikungunya, Zika, and more recently, COVID-19, as well as the resurgence of cholera. The aftermath of Hurricane Matthew in 1016 and the 2021 earthquake continues to weigh on our health infrastructure in a climate of political instability and recurring violence. Added to these shocks have been major social political crises, urban violences, prolonged instability, internal population displacement, attack on health facilities, and growing food insecurity. The accumulation of crises exerts constant pressure on our health system and limit its recovery capacity. Today in Haiti, health facilities operate in areas marked by insecurity, where access to both patient and health personnel is often hindered. Displaced population require essential care, vaccination services, management of chronic disease, and maternal health care. Epidemic outbreaks, whether cholera or other threats, demand constant surveillance and rapid response capacity. Every service interruption can have immediate consequences for lives of families. In this context, access to essential health service become both difficult and more vital. Health emergencies do not only cost life directly, they weaken resilience, exacerbate inequality, and slow recovery. The situation in my country, Haiti, also remind us of an essential lesson. Resilience in the face of emergency is built before and during crisis. The initial response decided during the first 24 to 48 hours rely primarily on our country's pre-existing capacity, a period during which the number of lives saved is the highest. Strengthening health service during period of calm, including primary healthcare, surveillance, human resources, supply chains, information system, and governments, constitute one of the most cost-effective investment to mitigate the impact of future shocks. In this spirit of strengthening that we attach great value to our partnership with the Pan American Health Organization and the World Health Organization. The presence of PAHO, WHO in the field through technical support, assistance with coordination, surveillance, emergency response, and system strengthening is essential to maintaining vital services under extremely complex circumstances. But it must be stated clearly, humanitarian health action cannot be sustained amid uncertainty. Predictable, flexible, and rapid financial is indispensable. When resources are delayed or fragmented, response capacity weakens. When support is continuous, lives are saved, systems stabilize, and recovery become possible. Investing in emergency health response is a shared responsibility, essential to global stability and the preservation of human dignity. We therefore strongly support the WHO Health Emergency Appeal and call on partners to maintain and strengthen their commitment. Behind every line of this appeal are real people real communities, and a future at stake. Let us ensure that health remain at the heart of emergency response, not as secondary element, but as a priority. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for this powerful intervention. Second, I invite His Excellency, Mr. Yevgeny Honchar, the Deputy Minister of Health of Ukraine.
Hello. Dear colleagues, excellencies, and Dr. Tedros, let me begin by thanking the World Health Organization as well as Ireland and Norway for jointly hosting this important event and for their leadership in advancing global health in emergencies. Ensuring access to essential health service in emergency and humanitarian setting is a matter of life. Russian full-scale invasion has triggered a severe health crisis in Ukraine. It has disrupted essential health services and medical supply chain, increased the risk of non-communicable and infectious disease, deteriorated mental health condition, and raised the threat of radiological and chemical hazards. Thousands of Ukrainian healthcare facilities have been deliberately targeted by Russian attacks, constituting grave violation of international humanitarian law. The humanitarian situation continued to worsen. Civilian casualties reached their highest level in 2025, with more than 2,800 attacks on healthcare documented since 2022. Also, Russia weaponized winter by timing attacks on Ukrainians' power and heating system to maximize civilian harm. Strikes focus firstly on high-impact nodes, its combined heat and power plant, transformers, grid, for creating cascading failures across heat, water, and sewage networks. Gas infrastructure is also targeted to weaker systems.
Was the World Health Organization Emergency Health Appeal. We go for a quick ad break. Our English news after the break.
To all the viewers of Eswatini TV in the kingdom and beyond. Eswatini TV is regulated by the Eswatini Communications Commission through the Broadcasting Code and Broadcasting Guidelines. Under these instruments, the station commits to broadcasting information and news that have been fact-checked, programs and content in respectful language with no elements of hate speech, violence or sexual activity. If you hear any unsuitable content on this channel, you have a right to voice your complaints with the station management. Should you not be satisfied with the response or action taken, you can escalate your matter to the Communications Commission at PO Box 7811 Babani. Call 2406 7000 or send an email to info@esccom.org.za. For more information, visit www.esccom.org.za.
Welcome back. Let's look at our news. Education Minister Owen Nxumalo has made it clear that school principals have no authority to deny entry to learners who wish to enroll after not performing well in Form 5. Now, this follows reports that some schools are allegedly forcing struggling learners to stay at home for a year, commonly referred to as a gap year.
Out of the 22,761 learners who sat for the 2025 Eswatini General Certificate of Secondary Education examination, some did not achieve the result they hoped for and are seeking for a second chance to improve their grades. However, concerns have emerged after reports that certain schools are allegedly instructing these learners to stay at home for at least a year, commonly referred as a gap year, before they can re-enroll. The Honorable Minister of Education and Training, Owen Nxumalo, firmly responded to the matter, stating that school principals are not permitted to deny learners the opportunity to continue with their education.
Bo principal lapha baceliwe lokuthi abahambe bayochisa kuleti tikolo. Kepha na akusho lokuthi besebenta ema-decision la ukhanza ukuthi akekho emthethweni. Sikhule nje soke phela besiye etikolweni. Nangabe kwamlo kanjani form 3 awukamphasi uyamphinza, form 5 awukamphasi uyamphinza. Manje nase bathi labantwana abayemakhaya akusiko lokukahle lokho.
The Honorable Minister emphasized that every learner has the right to access education and that schools must provide those who wish to repeat Form 5 with a fair chance to do so. Meanwhile, the president of the Eswatini Principals Association, Armstrong Dlamini, also weighed in on the issue. Dlamini says there is no policy or legal instrument that grants head teachers the authority to force learners to take a gap year. The Minister of Education further cautioned schools against making unilateral decisions that may negatively impact learners. Schools have been directed to consult the Ministry of Education through their respective regional education offices before implementing any decision affecting learners. Reporting, Kusile Koza, Ezulwini.
Owen Nxumalo also says schools intending to increase top-up fees must first consult with the Ministry of Education. The minister made the remarks amid ongoing discussions surrounding school fees adjustments, as well as recent action taken against some school principals.
Litiko nalo belenda umsebenzi walo belilandzela wona umthetho, kepha na ke ufuna sikhulumisane sibone lokuthi lokho sikulungisa kanjani. Kepha le top up ngayichaza nje ukuthi le top up nangabe khona into lethithe nifuna kuyenda noma nifuna kwakha umthoyi iba nesikhathi.
The Honorable Minister clarifies that the 39 principals who recently faced disciplinary action were not being victimized. According to the Honorable Minister, Their Majesty's directive seeks to ensure that every Liswati has access to education while also maintaining peace and stability within schools. He further stressed that any school wishing to increase top-up fees must engage the ministry to ensure that their decisions are aligned with national education policies and the country's broader development goals. The association has also requested a formal sit-down with the Honorable Minister in an effort to resolve the issue in unity. Reporting, Kusile Koza, Ezulwini.
More than 38,000 eMaswati are expected to gain access to clean and safe water under the Kusile Water Supply and Sanitation Project that is funded by the World Bank. This was revealed by the Eswatini Water Services Cooperations Managing Director, who is acting, Nomahlubi Matiwane, during a briefing on Tuesday.
The Kingdom of Eswatini received a financial support of 815 million emalangeni from the World Bank for the Kusile Nhlangano Siphambanweni Water and Sanitation Project. The project, which is being implemented by the Eswatini Water Services Corporation, is designed to address long-standing water challenges in the Kusile region. During a media briefing hosted by the corporation, EWSC Acting Managing Director Nomahlubi Matiwane said the project is expected to significantly improve access to clean water and sanitation, contributing to a better health outcomes and overall development in the region.
The objectives of this project is deliberate and forward-looking to increase access to improve water supply and sanitation services in the Nhlangano Siphambanweni corridor of the Kusile region, while strengthening sector institutions and policy frameworks related to drought resilience, water resources management, and water sanitation and hygiene services.
Project Coordinator Nobuhle Matsebula highlighted that while the World Bank provided significant financial backing, the government of the Kingdom of Eswatini also contributed funds towards the initiative.
The project components are divided into four. We have component 1, which has subcomponents 1.1, which is to the value about 32.2 million USD, equivalent to about in today's rate 512 emalangeni.
Once completed, the project is expected to benefit more than 38,000 eMaswati. In addition, 36 schools and 4 health facilities will receive improved sanitation infrastructure, enhancing hygiene and creating a safer environment for learners, patients, and staff. Reporting Samgalsiwe Koza, Mbabane.
The Eswatini National Agriculture Union says the time has come for maize to also be classified as one of the irrigated crops. The organization says this follows a nationwide assessment of crops where it found that a large portion of maize has been damaged by the intense heat that is experienced in recent days. The chief executive of the organization, Tami Dlamini, says the situation is worrying in dryland areas, although crops in areas with good rainfall are still in better condition.
We are not expecting a good harvest for this year just because of what has happened in the last few weeks. But we are still continuing with our assessments and also speaking to our partners that include the ministry. Currently, there are no new water developments, but what we are speaking to our members about, quite a few of the farmers who are in the sugar growing areas are part of our members. But if you look at a lot of land there is irrigation, it's fenced, but it's not being utilized. So we are in an effort to work with them just to find out what are the issues that have caused production to cease. And we want to bring all of that back into production so that we can plant. We are also advocating for maize to be grown in those irrigated areas because there is absolutely no reason why we are still importing maize, and we can see some fallow land that at times also has irrigation systems and is also fenced. That includes the large-scale farms, medium to large-scale farms. We are also seeing the small garden schemes all over the country that are now defunct, but they still have water sources. So we are speaking to the members, firstly, to see what are the governance issues within those schemes that make the schemes not to function properly or to cease to operate. We would like to resuscitate all of that, and we think they can contribute positively to the food basket.
Well, the headline inflation rate for last month is 2.1%. This has been reported by the Central Statistics Office under the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development in their January Consumer Price Index report.
The Central Statistics Office reports that the 2.1% inflation rate observed last month is 0.2 percentage points lower than the 2.3% observed in December last year. This is also 2 percentage points lower than the inflation rate of 4.1% observed in January last year. In January this year, the inflation rate for goods is 2.2% and for services it is 2%. This inflation rate, according to the Central Statistics Office, is 0.3 percentage points higher than the 0% inflation observed in December 2025. Year-on-year highlights for January 2026 compared to January 2025 are as follows. Health decreased from 7.9% in January last year to 0.5% in January this year. The Central Statistics Office says this is due to zero growth rates observed in medical services in this category. Alcohol, beverages, tobacco and narcotics decreased from 11.2% in January last year to 5% in January this year. This is due to slower growth rates observed significantly in beer and wine in this category. Restaurants and hotels decreased from 6.9% in January last year to 2.1% in January this year. This is due to negative growth rates observed in restaurants and cafes and slower growth rates in accommodation services in this category. Reporting, Nelson Dlangamandla Mbabane.
The National Commissioner of Police, Vusi Manoma, says the future of policing in Eswatini will not be shaped by slogans, but by educated, disciplined, and visionary officers. Masango made these remarks during the graduation ceremony of 27 officers.
The training of these police officers from the country's 4 regions, which was conducted at the Matapa Police Academy, took 3 years to complete.
To the graduates, balancing work and study are not easy. It requires sacrifice. It requires discipline. It requires resilience. As was acknowledged in previous address, completing this rigorous program is no small achievement. You studied policing strategies, engaged with cybercrime, explored forensic investigation, and examined leadership principles. But your education does not end here. Let your integrity be unquestionable. Let your competence be visible. Remember the oath you have taken, and that authority must always be exercised with humility. Also remember that public trust is earned daily, but can be lost instantly.
The students were represented by Patricia Smelane.
Thank you for creating an environment that allowed us to grow intellectually and professionally. Your discipline, mentorship, and encouragement shaped us into better leaders and better officers.
September Dlamini is speaking about the police studies program.
Full accreditation for this program. It is accredited, it can be offered worldwide. It has that prestige and it is going to grow leaps and bounds, we believe.
The National Commissioner of Police says that in March 2024, domestic violence was highlighted as a pressing national concern. He adds that domestic violence continues to tear apart families and communities. He says these students form part of the solution. Reporting Fortune Dlangamandla, visual source from the Royal Eswatini Police Service Communications and Information Department.
We look at stories from the High Court now, where the Crown says there is nothing prejudicial to the accused persons facing terrorism-related charges if the names of witnesses are withheld. A report on this matter and other cases heard at the High Court follows.
The Crown stated this in court, where the accused Clement Gunene and Msindiso Musanchalinchal want the Crown to disclose the names of witnesses in the cases they are facing. The Crown says the most important thing is for the accused to know the allegations directed at them. The Crown says it is not at all the case that the names of witnesses, if withheld, will prejudice the accused in the cases against them. The Crown adds that if at a later stage the accused sees a witness in court and still wants to verify the witness's evidence, the accused can request the court for a postponement of their case. With these assurances, the Crown says the matter of whether the accused will be prejudiced by the withholding of witness names is not an issue, as the court safeguards their rights. The Crown says the names of witnesses should be withheld in cases involving terrorism to protect the witness. At the same time, the accused complained that not knowing the names of witnesses makes it difficult for them to properly prepare for their defense. The Crown was represented by Advocate Zweli Zagwe, while the accused were represented by their lawyers Busiso Nhlabathi and Professor Dlamini. At the time of compiling this report, the matter was yet to be heard by High Court Judge Nkosinathi Maseko. Meanwhile, at the High Court, a man accused of attempted murder and kidnapping a mechanic after the mechanic went missing along with his car. The man facing the attempted murder and kidnapping charges is Kerry Sabelo Davis, aged 34 years old, of Bethany. In the attempted murder of mechanic Ncamiso Dube, the accused is alleged to have hacked Dube on severe on the head and assaulted him all over the body with an intention to kill him. The second case involves the kidnapping charge. The accused allegedly committed this together with Paul Dlamini, aged 27, from Bethany, Zipho Dlangamandla, aged 23, from Gwane Park. The accused appeared before the High Court, where he applied for bail. It tells Judge Bongani Dlamini that on the 11th of February 2026, he bought a BMW 1 Series vehicle from someone and on the 13th of February asked mechanic Dube to fix it. The accused continued to state that the mechanic promised to fix the car on that day. The accused told Judge Lamin that he reported the matter to Eswatini police station. He says on the 14th of February 2026, he went to the mechanic, but the mechanic was absent, the car was not there, and his phone calls were not answered. The accused says for now he does not know where the car is. The accused applied for bail, saying that keeping him in custody will disrupt his work under A.G. Thomas. He says he was arrested by police officers from Malkens. The Crown did not oppose the accused bail application. The judge then granted the accused bail of 15,000 emalangeni. The judge ordered him to pay 3,000 emalangeni, while 12,000 as surety. Reporting Fortune Hlangamandla, High Court.
Well, tributes are pouring in for the American civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, who has died at the age of 84. He is being remembered as a transformational figure in the civil rights movement and in American politics at large.
When Barack Obama won the presidential election in 2008, becoming the United States' first black president, it was enough to bring Jesse Jackson to tears. It was a moment Jackson himself had paved the way for. He ran for president twice in the 1980s and was the first African American to have significant success at the ballot box. In a statement, Obama wrote, "Michelle and I were deeply saddened to hear about the passing of a true giant," adding, "We stood on his shoulders."
Jesse Jackson changed American politics. He was a consequential and transformative figure.
Kamala Harris, the first black woman to become vice president, said in a statement, "Reverend Jesse Jackson was one of America's great patriots. He spent his life summoning all of us to fulfill the promise of America and building the coalitions to make the promise real." Friends and supporters also paid tribute outside the headquarters of Jackson's Rainbow Push Coalition in Chicago.
I felt like he was like family. I mean, he did a lot of things for me and the community as well.
What I am somebody means is that all you have to do is just keep pushing. Keep pushing. And that's what Jesse taught us.
In a statement, former President Bill Clinton said that Jesse Jackson championed human dignity, and former President Joe Biden described Jackson as a man of God and of the people. For his part, President Trump wrote of Jackson, "He was a good man with lots of personality, grit, and street smarts." Jackson was a protege of the civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr. and was at his side when King was assassinated in 1968. King's daughter, Bernice, called Jackson a courageous bridge builder, posting a photo of her father and Jackson with the caption, "Both now ancestors."
Traditional prayers, fireworks, and fairs marked the Lunar New Year on Tuesday, alongside 21st century humanoid robots. The activities ushered in the Year of the Horse, one of 12 animals in the Chinese zodiac, succeeding the Year of the Snake. Crowds descended on popular temples to burn incense and pray for happiness and success in the coming year.
The Lunar New Year's celebrations got underway in the southern Chinese city of Zhanjiang with a traditional lion dance. While on the island of Hainan, crowds were entertained by the famous Sanya molten fireworks display to ring in the Year of the Horse. The annual gala on Chinese state TV, the most watched television program on earth, regaled holiday viewers for more than 3 hours with performances by the likes of John Legend and French singer Hélène Rollez. And there was also a spectacular performance by so-called humanoid robots. In Hong Kong, thousands flocked to Wong Tai Sin Taoist Shrine, a traditional gathering place to bring luck for the year ahead. Many had waited for hours to be the first to make New Year's wishes at midnight.
I'm very happy and excited. We should be in the first 10 people for the 12 a.m. incense queue. I arrived at 6 p.m. and have been queuing for several hours already. I came early.
Among the worshippers was the 95-year-old Hong Kong actress Lana Wong, a familiar face for the temple celebrations, dressed as ever as the Chinese goddess of mercy, Guan Yin.
I wish everyone good health and that their wishes come true, and whatever they aim for will be met with success.
And it's not just China that celebrates the Lunar New Year. The feast is also marked in Korea and Vietnam, where it is known as Tet, and which had its own televised spectacle with fireworks and musical performances from across the country.
Russian and Belarusian athletes will be allowed to compete under their own national flags at the 2026 Paralympics in Milan, Cortina. The game's governing body confirmed to the AFP on Tuesday.
It's a first in the world of sports since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. At the upcoming Milan Cortina Winter Paralympics, athletes from Russia and Belarus will be able to compete under their own national flags. The athletes will be treated like those from any other country, said the International Paralympic Committee, a decision IOC President Kirsty Coventry has been building up to.
Our game is sport. That means keeping sport a neutral ground, a place where every athlete can compete freely without being held back by the politics or divisions of their governments.
6 Russian athletes have been awarded wildcards in alpine skiing, cross-country skiing and snowboarding, including three-time alpine skiing gold medalist Alexei Bugaev, while 4 Belarusians will be taking part in cross-country skiing. Russians and Belarusians who met strict criteria were allowed to compete as individual neutral athletes at the Paris 2024 Olympics, as is the case for the Winter Olympics currently underway in Italy. Russia's war in Ukraine has been at the center of the biggest controversy of the Winter Olympics. Ukrainian skeleton athlete and flag bearer Vladislav Hershkovich was banned from competing because he wanted to wear a special remembrance helmet featuring artwork depicting Ukrainian athletes killed during Russia's invasion. Hershkovich's lawyer gave this comment to France 24.
A Ukrainian athlete is excluded without a proven violation, while representatives of aggressor states are gradually regaining full participation in international sport. This is no longer only a question of law, but of consistency, fairness, and humanity in international sport today.
The Winter Paralympics begins on the 6th of March. The inclusion of Russian and Belarusian athletes competing under their flags could push other sport competitions to do the same, with FIFA President Gianni Infantino already having said that he wants Russia reinstated to international football.
Well, 6 Olympic skiers, joined by their parents, coaches and the federation presidents, came together on Sunday to advocate for more inclusion at the Winter Games, representing Jamaica, Kenya, Eritrea, Madagascar, South Africa and Benin.
They hail from Kenya, South Africa, Eritrea, Jamaica, Madagascar and Benin, and are all competing in the 2026 Winter Olympics. These 6 skiers were brought together by Henry Rivers, the founder of NBS, an organization that supports athletes of color and promotes inclusion in winter sports.
We identify, develop, and support athletes of color everywhere to elevate them to a status of elite athleticism. Without organizations like the NBS, we wouldn't be able to fund some of these athletes.
With only 14 athletes representing 8 African countries, skiers of color remain a minority in the competition. But Eritrean alpine skier Shannon Abeda says representation has come a long way since his first participation in the 2018 Winter Olympics.
Coming here and seeing more was great, and getting to know some of the athletes from the smaller nations, it makes me feel less alone. But I also wanted to emphasize that the support from the bigger nations has been incredible.
Others were competing for the first time and reveling in the moment, like 22-year-old Beninese alpine skier Nathan Chibozo.
For me, it's a very proud feeling to represent Benin. I'm very happy. It's the first time Benin is present at the Winter Olympics.
African athletes have yet to win a medal at the Winter Olympics, but for Henry Rivers, it's only a matter of time before one of them makes it onto the podium.
Businesses in southwestern France are assessing heavy losses after recording flooding submerged towns including Marmande, La Rio and Cadillac, Saragoron. Floodwaters rising above 10 meters inundated shops, spas and restaurants.
Marmande in southwestern France saw floodwaters rise to over 10 meters during the weekend. Near the Garonne River, this spa found itself submerged.
It came right up to there. You can see it's my height.
On Monday, it was time to clean up and estimate the cost.
For the equipment, it will be 5,000 to 10,000 euros, but the final cost will be higher since we won't be able to reopen for several weeks.
One small consolation, the business managed to save its furniture by storing it upstairs. But firms are increasingly having to fork out for climate-related insurance. 9.4 billion euros in 2024, a 20% increase in 2 years. Elsewhere, others have had to decamp, with one florist operating out of a shopping centre after her boutique was completely flooded, leaving thousands of euros of damage.
All that's left is the large furniture which we couldn't dismantle and get out, and the workbenches which are all now floating in the shop.
Businesses in other towns were hard hit too, like this pizza restaurant in Cadillac-sur-Garonne.
The water's above my knees.
It was flooded in 2021, and now its owner is facing enormous losses again.
The pizza cabinet is 4,000 euros. A piano is another 3. Add it all up, it's huge. And then there's the loss of activity. It's a lot.
In 2024, the cost of climate-related events to insurers reached 5 billion euros.
The Eswatini Football Association's chief executive, Frederick Mngomezulu, says the national team, Sitsebe Samhlekazi, should go to the COSAFA Cup believing in positive results.
During the field function for the women's national team, Sitsebe Samhlekazi, ahead of their departure to the COSAFA Cup in South Africa, the chief executive office of the Eswatini Football Association, Frederick Mngomezulu, said the team should go to the tournament to show that the country has improved.
We should not be overawed by the names in front of us within the group that we are going to be participating in. Ours is to be confident, be steadfast, especially because we know that your coaches already have planted something in you. They've given you some tricks, not just tricks, but some talents and skills that you are going to utilize in the competition. It is therefore very important as a first that you respect one another, you support one another in whatever that you be doing in the competition, because that will translate into the performance on the field.
The head coach, Juan Makokula, said the preparations they have made give them confidence that they will do well in this tournament.
Having said that, this time around, the performance is expected to be much better. And the preparations, let's be now, we can last a glimpse of hope. We would see wind.
Team captain Mangles Konza said they will work hard in their matches and try to apply what the coaches have taught them.
Athembisa ukuthi emandla ngowona lesitawafaka njengoba coach bebasifundisile kuko konke labasifundise kona ngicabanga ukuthi sitawu ku-applya konke groundini sikhone ku-achieve results la better.
Sitsebe will play their first game this Thursday against Botswana, then Group B alongside Zambia and Zimbabwe. The tournament is hosted in Polokwane, South Africa. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizwe Msibi, Lobamba.
And that marks the end of our English news. Let's go for a net break. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us.
Hello to all the viewers of Eswatini TV in the kingdom and beyond. Eswatini TV is regulated by the Eswatini Communications Commission through the Broadcasting Code and Broadcasting Guidelines. Under these instruments, the station commits to broadcasting information and news that have been fact-checked, programs and content in respectful language with no elements of hate speech, violence or sexual activity. If you hear any unsuitable content on this channel, you have a right to voice your complaints with the station management. Should you not be satisfied with the response or action taken, you can escalate your matter to the Communications Commission at PO Box 7811 Babani. Call 2406 7000 or send an email to info@esccom.org.za. For more information, visit www.esccom.org.za.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show. We now shift our focus to the United Nations, Geneva, where they are bringing us updates on what is happening around the country, around the world.
All right, some travel to share with you. Tomorrow, the Secretary General will be heading to New Delhi in India, where he's been invited to take part in the Artificial Intelligence Impact Summit. He's scheduled to participate in the summit's opening ceremony, a plenary with heads of states and government, as well as a session on the role of science in international AI governance. The Secretary General will have bilateral meetings with the President of India, Draupadi Murmu, as well as with the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. He will also meet with leaders attending the summit, tech leaders, and members of the International Scientific Panel on Artificial Intelligence. While in India, the Secretary General is also scheduled to take part in a roundtable organized by our UN colleagues to discuss renewable energy and energy transition. With India emerging as a global leader in renewable energy expansion, the discussion will bring together senior figures from industry, finance, policy, civil society to identify concrete steps to further accelerate renewable energy development, strengthen grid and storage, and mobilize investment at scale. This engagement is part of the Secretary General's continued efforts to advance faster, fair, and more inclusive global energy transition aligned with the Paris Agreement. On Sunday, from New Delhi, he will travel to Geneva in Switzerland, where on Monday he will deliver remarks at the opening of the 61st session of the Human Rights Council. Later on Monday, the Secretary General will also address the high-level segment of the 2026 session of the Conference on Disarmament. While there, the Secretary General will also hold bilateral meetings with leaders and ministers attending the opening of the Human Rights Council, as well as a meeting with groups of human rights non-governmental organizations. He's also scheduled to participate in an event hosted by the Vice President of the Swiss Federation, Ignacio Cassis, to mark the completion of the Portail des Nations building, a new visitor center for the UN compound in Geneva. Secretary General will be heading back to New York on Monday evening. And he is in New York because he just returned from Addis Ababa, whereas you will have seen on Saturday he spoke at the opening of the 39th session of the 39th African Union Ordinary Summit. He praised the UN's partnership with the African regional organizations, saying it has grown stronger over the past decade. Looking ahead, the Secretary General added, we continue to have three major areas of focus in our work with African Union: peace, economic action, and climate action. He also renewed his call for reforms of the Security Council, saying the absence of a permanent seat for Africa is indefensible. Later in the day, the Secretary General held a press conference and told reporters that Africa is navigating some of the world's hardest challenges and doing so with determination, creativity, and resilience. Turning to climate, he called on developed countries to triple adaptation finance, mobilize 1.3 trillion United States dollars a year by 2035, and increase contributions to the Loss and Damage Fund. With the right support, he said Africa will become a renewables powerhouse. Mr. Guterres added that the continent's critical minerals and resources will help create new industries and jobs, building value at home and not exporting value away. The plundering and exploitation of Africa's resources must end, he said. Throughout the day, the Secretary General continued to hold bilateral meetings with leaders attending the summit, and you have seen multiple readouts issued over the weekend. A couple of senior appointments to share with you. Today, the Secretary General announced the appointment of Awa Dabo of the Gambia as his Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights. She succeeds Nada al-Nashif of Jordan, to whom the Secretary General and the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, are deeply grateful for her contribution to the organization. Ms. Awa Dabo has extensive experience in human rights, crisis recovery, peace building and prevention, humanitarian affairs and development. Ms. Dabo previously served as chief of the country's oversight and support for the UN Development Program's Regional Bureau for Africa. We're also announcing today the appointment by the Secretary General of Claudia Fuentes Julio of Chile as Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights and head of the UN Human Rights Office in New York. She will succeed Ilse Brands-Keris of Latvia, to whom the Secretary General and Mr. Turk are both deeply grateful for contributions to the organization. Ms. Fuentes Julio, who's currently the permanent representative of Chile to the UN and other organizations in Geneva, brings more than 2 decades of experience in international relations, multilateral diplomacy, and human rights. Turning to the West Bank, the occupied West Bank, I can tell you that the Secretary General condemns the Israeli government's decision on 15th February to resume land registrations procedures in Area C of the occupied West Bank. That follows a decision by the Israeli cabinet in May of last year. The decision could lead to the dispossession of Palestinians of their property and risks expanding Israeli control over land in the area. Such measures, including Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territory, are not only destabilizing, but as recalled by the International Court of Justice, illegal, unlawful. He calls on the Israeli government to immediately reverse these measures. He again warns that the current trajectory on the ground is eroding the prospects for the two-state solution. The Secretary General reiterates that all Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the regime associated with them, have no legal validity and are in flagrant violations of international law and relevant United Nations resolutions. The Secretary General calls on all parties to preserve the only path to lasting peace, and that is a negotiated two-state solution in line with relevant Security Council resolutions and international law. Turning to the situation on the ground in Gaza, our colleagues for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warned that humanitarian operations continue to face significant impediments. Shipments from Jordan are restricted to a route that requires multiple offloading and reloading points. Shipments from Egypt, Karim Shalom, Karim Abu Salam crossing face a high return rate, despite a recent improvements between the 4th and the 10th of February. Less than 60% of consignments from Egypt could be offloaded at that crossing point. Inside Gaza, humanitarian movements that require coordination with Israeli authorities also continue to face obstacles. Of nearly 50 such movements coordinated between the 6th and the 11th of February, just only half were facilitated. 5 were denied outright and 11 were approved, but encountered significant delays and other impediments, including 2 that are only partially accomplished as a result. And just today, we had 2 more denials. Our teams on the ground are engaging with the authorities to clarify the constraints and seek a resolution so that our operations can move forward. In recent days, our colleagues leading on logistics supported the transportation of nearly 1,900 pallets full of food, shelter, health, water, and sanitation items from crossing points along the perimeter fence to destinations inside Gaza. Earlier today, Courtney Rattray, the Secretary General Chef de Cabinet, delivered remarks on the SG's behalf at the opening of the session of the Special Committee on Decolonialization. In the remarks he delivered, the Secretary General said that our world has come a long way, with well over 100 nations gaining independence since 1945. Yet the legacy of colonialism has left profound scars through deeply rooted mechanisms of economic exploitation, as well as forms in the form of racism, inequality, persistent exclusion from decision-making bodies. The Secretary General laid out 3 priorities for dealing with the 17 remaining non-self-governing territories. First, inclusive dialogue among non-self-governing territories, administrating powers, member states, and all other stakeholders. Second, the central role of youth. And third, the urgent needs for climate action. His full remarks were shared with you. And regarding Ukraine, our colleagues in Geneva, the International Organization for Migration, today noted that as Ukraine prepares to enter a 5th year since the full-scale Russian invasion on 24th February, ongoing attacks on energy infrastructures continue to strain living conditions for millions. According to new data from IOM, an estimated 325,000 Ukraine returnees could be displaced once again in the coming months, with more than 1/3 thinking of moving abroad again. Since 2022, IOM has delivered a large-scale nationwide response to the crisis in Ukraine, supporting up to 6.9 million people inside Ukraine, directly and indirectly, as well as millions across 11 neighboring countries. To prevent further displacement, IOM urges the international community to scale up winterization, housing repairs, livelihood support, and integrated mental health and psychosocial services, particularly in frontline and high-return areas. And moving to this hemisphere, our colleagues at OCHA tell us that in Colombia last Friday, we, along with our partners in the government, launched a 2026 humanitarian needs and response plan. Colombia continues to face complex humanitarian crises marked by armed conflict, climate-related disaster, and migration flows. Humanitarian partners estimate that nearly 7 million people need humanitarian aid this year. That's roughly 1 in 8 Colombians. And our humanitarian colleagues also note that conflict between non-state armed groups and now present in 60% of Colombia's municipalities, mostly in rural areas, has resulted in forced displacement, confinement, and restrictions on people's mobility. Last year saw a 58% increase in attacks against civilians. That's what our partners are telling us. Climate emergencies such as the recent floods in Cordoba, which affect more than 150,000 people, also increase humanitarian needs. To respond to most pressing needs, the humanitarian community requires $287 million and aims to reach 1.2 million people. 2025 humanitarian operation received only 24% of the funds needed. 2 new resident coordinators to announce. Following host government approval, the Secretary General appointed Amanda Kozi Mukwashi of Zambia as the new UN resident coordinator in Angola, and he also appointed Allegra Maria del Pilar Baiocchi of Italy as the new resident coordinator in Mexico. Both took up their posts on February 15th. Ms. Mukwashi is a global leader with over 30 years of experience in international development humanitarian work, while Ms. Baiocchi brings more than 25 years of experience in development, humanitarian, and strategic leadership notes. They will both guide UN country teams using their ability to bring people together to combine UN expertise and resource in support of nationally led efforts to advance sustainable goals. Biographies online. 2 countries paid up in full. We have a little quiz. Gabriel, paying attention? This country considers the number 17 to be unlucky. Italy. Brava. Do you know why? Okay. Do your 2 colleagues behind you know why? Okay. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because the number 17, when spelt in Roman numerals, can be rearranged to spell the word vixi, meaning I have lived, implying death. That's why 17 is unlucky in Italy. All right. This country is the second flattest country in the world behind the Maldives. Whew. Wow. Yes. Very good. It is also one of the very few places where the sea directly meets the desert sand dunes. So we say thank you, grazie to our friends in Rome, shukrans to our friends in Doha for having paid up in full. We're up to 68. Okay. Do you have a question or do you yield to someone else? Do you have a question? You need, okay, Namo, you need your microphone, you can ask a question.
Follow up on the Deputy Special Envoy for Syria. Yesterday I asked about if he will meet with SDF and other the Kurdish officials in Syria when he's going, I think, in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Cordone is heading on Monday to Beirut, and then we expect him to cross into Syria soon after that. And of course, he will engage with all actors, political, government, and other civil society. Obviously, as his meetings happen, his office will share them with you. Yes, Pan, please. It's clearly a holiday today, huh?
Thank you. Happy holiday to all. Speaking of energy transition, I have two questions. One is that China has actively promoted green transition, and it has successfully achieved economic development while transition to green energy. So what's your perspective for China's green transition and its global significance?
Well, I mean, I think obviously China, as the world's second largest economy, has a critical role to play in energy transition, both at home and also encouraging others to go into an active, just transition backed with the resources that are needed.
Okay, my second question concerns China's draft environmental code. China is making an environmental code, draft law actually, so that is aimed at coordinate the relationship between economic development and environmental protection. So can you give your perspective for this measure in promoting global environmental governance?
To be honest, I would give you a perspective if I knew more about what you were asking about. So I will look into it and respond. Yes, Gabriel, and then.
Thanks, Steph. A couple of questions. One is on, in your comments, you said that less than 60% of the consignments from Egypt could be offloaded at the crossing point inside Gaza. Can you be specific on who exactly is blocking that?
Well, I mean, the blockage comes from the issues with the Israeli authorities who are dealing with that side of the crossings.
And on your remarks on Israel and their intent on land registration in Area C, would the Secretary General agree with many governments that have come out and called that de facto annexation?
Whether it's de facto annexation or not, it is driving us further away from a two-state solution, which may very well be the intent of those who are pushing that policy.
And in your comments, you mentioned how it's a violation of international law. I think you used those exact words.
Unlawful,
or close,
yeah.
Close to it.
Yeah.
Whether it be Israel killing UN staff members over the last couple of years in Gaza, bombing hospitals, violating the ceasefire, or in this case, the most recent case now of the land registration Area C, there appear to be no direct consequences for violations of international law over the last couple of years. Does the Secretary General agree with that? And what more can be done to add consequences?
If you listen to what the Secretary General has said for quite some time, he has seen with great concern growing impunity
for those who violate international law in many different parts of the world. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Stefan. I have a question with regard to the event that the Secretary General is going to take part in New Delhi. What is his concrete expectations with regard to advancing the UN's agenda on AI?
Well, the aim is to ensure that the international community fully understands all the potential and the risks of AI, and that everyone has a seat at the table in terms of guiding policy, that it not just be left in the hands of a few governments or a few countries and a few companies. There are a lot of people who will be, all of us in a sense, our lives will be implicated by the development of AI, in which direction it goes. And there are many, many countries who will be impacted greatly and yet may not have a say. This is to ensure that everyone has a say. And decisions are based on facts and science. We'll go to Jesus from FA.
Hello. I would like to ask about the food crisis in Cuba, which keeps escalating. Is the Secretary General worried about the situation in Cuba, especially regarding humanitarian needs?
Yes, the Secretary General has been following the situation in Cuba extremely closely, and I can tell you that he's very concerned about the situation in Cuba, and which is worsening as oil needs continue to be unmet. As you know, the General Assembly has consistently called for an end to the embargo imposed by the United States on Cuba. The Secretary General would like to see all parties pursue dialogue and respect for international law yet again. But our teams on the ground are working with the government to help support the humanitarian relief for the people of Cuba. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Steph. I have a question, one big question related to Palestine. First, Israel decided to allow only 10,000 Jerusalemites to enter the Al-Aqsa Mosque during the month of Ramadan. That's part, if you have any comment on that. And second, yesterday, 11 Palestinians were killed in Gaza, and I haven't heard any comment on the death toll in Gaza. 3 of them were found this morning in the ruins. One of them is a child. And the village of Anata, which is next to Jerusalem, Israel decided to destroy 40 units in the village of Anata. And on the land registration, I want to correct Gabriel. It's related to area A and B.
Abdelhamid, you can correct Gabriel separately. What is your question?
Yeah, I know. The question on land registration and confiscating Palestinian land now in area A and B, would that make Israel clearly a settler colonial state or not?
Well, I will let you analyze the answer to that last question. We have been expressing our increasing concern at the various regulations and decisions that have been put into place by the Israeli government concerning settlement activity in the West Bank. I think we've been consistent in our message that it is unlawful, and that it is also obviously hindering any movement, any prospect of movement towards a two-state solution.
All right, so that was an update from the United Nations in Geneva. It's 2 minutes before 8 o'clock. We go for an ad break and come back. We wrap up the program. 2 minutes before 8 o'clock simakhulu ukuthi nibe nathi lo mhla ekseni sita nibona kusasa nibe nelanga elihle.
Sale kahle.
It's another popping Friday evening right here on Friday Night Lights, baby. This is the platform for the coolest DJs in the kingdom.